This week I'm going to show you 5 things I'd change from the A7 III to the A7 IV. Even though the Sony A7 III is a great camera and I really do love shooting with it, there are a few things that really bug me about it, and because I shoot every day with it and I use it on a day-to-day basis, these are really annoying. Now I'm hoping that the guys at Sony do some research and find this video and maybe take even 1 or 2 of these ideas away and add them to the Sony A7 IV when it does come out. And knowing Sony's track record recently of releasing lots of different cameras, this shouldn't be too long. And also, if you have any others that aren't in my list, let me know in the comments below. It'd be great to hear what you would change on this camera and what would make you want to upgrade. So these are the 5 things that I'd change. And also at the end, I've got a bit of advice for Sony. That is if you're watching. With the screen on the back of this camera, it's really annoying that it just tilts, and I wish it would flip around. Now you'd think that a flippy screen would just be for vloggers, but this isn't the case. If you're a photographer and you've ever tried to take a shot in the portrait orientation, holding the camera really low or really high, on the Sony cameras it's still really hard to see the monitor. With a flippy screen, you could pull it out and flip it back so you're looking straight down onto that screen. And especially if you're shooting at arm's length where you got the camera up as high as possible, so I wish they'd just bite the bullet and get the rights to having the flippy screen. This would be so much better, and this would be a massive improvement to this camera. Now everyone goes on about the menus, and they are a little bit haphazard. I can understand that there are so many features in this camera that they need to stack the menu in a certain way. But what I've found is, even though the Mark III is so much better than the Mark II menus, it still needs refining. So there are certain things that relate to photography that they're kind of in the movie menu and vice versa. So I wish everything was in a photography menu, everything was in a movie menu, and so on and so forth. It just needs a little bit of refining, and that would make it 10 times better. It is great that they've already added the My Menu system, so you can add stuff to this, but it does just need a little bit of refinement. With the IBIS or in-body image stabilization, it is good and it helps your photography. But if you've shot any videography with this camera, you'll know it's not that good. When it's compared to something like the GH5, it does look really bad. So I wish they'd upgrade the IBIS system in this camera, making it much more effective. The GH5 is a much smaller sensor, but it'd be great if they had really usable in-body image stabilization so you could almost shoot video without a gimbal. Now originally, when they first came out on the Canon cameras, I thought the touchscreens would be a little bit of a fad. But after using them to move the focusing point around, and then after borrowing one of my friend's Canon cameras and using the touchscreen in the menus, I wish Sony would extend their touchscreen to work in the menus as well. It's amazing how much easier it makes navigating through the menus. So even though we've got a touchscreen on the back of the camera to move the focusing point, I wish they put the touchscreen in the menus. Now I know we're not going to eliminate all of the dust that can get onto the sensor on this camera, especially if you're using a zoom that really sucks in air and sucks in that dust. However, if whenever we took the lens off, the shutter would close down, this would protect the sensor to a certain extent. I know on the Canon EOS R range they do this already, so it'd be great if they programmed this into this camera. Then if you remove the lens when you're outdoors, there's less likelihood of dust getting onto that sensor. And that's my 5 improvements that I would make if I was upgrading from the Sony A7 III to the A7 IV. They may not seem much, but when you're using the camera day in day out, these little niggles can be really annoying. And as I've already said, here's a little bit of bonus advice for Sony. Sony, I wish you'd make some more affordable lenses. Even with the Pro line, they're so much more expensive than the competition. I wish you guys would even just price match. When I used to shoot Canon, I had the 70-200 f2.8 Mark II, and it was a fantastic lens. It produced some really nice sharp images. I have shot with the Sony equivalent, which is the G Master 70-200 f2.8. However, this is around about £800 more expensive, and it's the same aperture and it's the same focal range. So I wish they would price match, and I think this would bring a lot more people across from other brands to Sony. Now with the Canon 16-35mm f2.8 Mark III, that comes in at around about £1,600 to £1,700, whereas the G Master 16-35 f2.8 is around about £2,100. So there is around about a £400 difference. If you were to buy both of these lenses together, you'd end up spending £1,200 more in the Sony ecosystem. And this is basically the price of another Pro lens. So that's a huge difference. And that's about it. Now you might think that I'm just moaning about a really good camera, and I am in a way. But if we almost voice our concerns about what we don't like about the cameras and what we want to change in these cameras, if Sony pick up any of these hints and tips, they'll learn from real photographers and they'll learn what our problems are with the systems. Now, do you have any changes that you'd like to see in the Mark IV when they finally do bring it out? Let me know in the comments below. It'd be great to hear any changes that I've missed out, or any changes that you'd like to see in this camera to really make it stand out and stand above the competition. As always, if you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. And for weekly tutorials, hints and tips in photography and videography, subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll see you next time.